Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Wurundjeri country, as that is where this podcast is recorded, and extend this acknowledgement to all First Nations peoples, past, present, and emerging. This podcast takes a holistic approach on community building and knowledge sharing that I hope you can utilise in your life. Let's do this.
Morning light and coffee black. Lesson plans are on the stack. Ready for the students' track. Gonna find our groove.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stranger in the Staff Room, where myself, Zoe Zammit, or as the kiddos call me, Miss Zammit, I'm a first-time teacher sharing lifelong stories, which I'm feeling like should be monthly rather than fortnightly. I appreciate all of you that listen consistently, and as I look more into podcasting and this side of the entertainment education industry as a whole, I'm starting to see a common theme that consistency is key, and trying to juggle full-time teaching and the podcast and the Instagram and ADHD, where juggling is not a thing. Walking straight is a goal in this sort of mindset. I feel like monthly is much more achievable to be consistent. So I want to thank your understanding in that. So now that I've got that legality or formality out of the way, this is an episode that I've been wanting to record for a while. It is a focus episode, which we haven't done in so long, and I'm so excited. This one is about permission to teach, or PTT. This is an Australian sort of initiative that has come in due to the lack of employment in the teaching industry, and how, the whole desperate for teachers statistics are coming out that about 50% of teachers drop out of the industry within their first 5 years. So the Australian government has initiated the permission to teach format, and it differs from state and territories. And I've also collected some of my lovely followers and listeners' opinions on permission to teach if they have done it, which is what I'm so excited about, because I finally have a way to get you more involved again. It's been quite lonely just talking to myself, so it's nice to get your opinions. So I'm so excited. Grab your tea, coffee, whatever you do to relax. Let's get into it.
Every day we learn and grow, setting minds all in a row, teaching them what they need to know, feeling that we're smooth.
Okay, so every state and territory have their own version of permission to teach. So as you might know if you've been listening for a while, I'm from Victoria, so I'll first start off with what it's all about in terms of Victoria, and then I'll look into the research that I've gotten on other states and territories. So this information comes from VIT, so the Victorian Institute of Teaching. These are the people that register you to be from a provisional to a fully registered teacher. For pre-service teachers, they can have a permission to teach for a maximum of 3 years, and they do not take priority over fully qualified teachers, and for only particular schools and subjects. So I have seen this in the school that I work at. If, for example, a teacher needs to resign or take a long-term leave for whatever reason, and they need to, fill that spot quite quickly, they look to a lot of our staff that they're sort of like admin staff, our interns that help with the administration tasks. A lot of them are coincidentally studying teaching. So they'll look to those people to hire in their place if they have been unsuccessful in hiring a fully qualified teacher in enough time. That's sort of how I've seen it in practice. And they can be in that position for a maximum of 3 years. So basically, they need to have the goal of being fully qualified sooner rather than later. In Queensland, this comes from the Queensland College of Teachers. This is for individuals who are not eligible for full teacher registration. Employing authorities must declare that no suitable registered teacher is available for the position. So quite similar to Victoria. This is, for people who want to be fully registered but aren't yet, and they have to sort of not be first in the pecking order. There's still a priority of fully qualified teachers. And also I'm going to go back to Victoria's one, you can only register to be a permission to teach in your last year of your degree. So it's not just like a first year uni student jumping in, it's a last year student. New South Wales, this is coming from a variety of sources. So permission to teach is only available for public schools. All teachers, whether they're pre-service or not, must have approval to teach prior to being selected. So that's where the difference is. The school that I work at is an independent school and there are permission to teach staff members there, whereas in New South Wales, it is only available to government schools, which in my opinion, I actually quite like, because it is a privilege staff-wise to work in an independent school. So it's nice that it's about equity in New South Wales. In the ACT, it is a restricted permission to teach. So it's final year pre-service teachers, so like Victoria, they can lead classrooms, but they need additional mentoring and support. So it's almost like, from what I've researched, like a placement, but less monitoring, if that makes sense, which is what I feel like it should be. And I feel like that's what governments are aiming for it to be in all states and territories, but it's nice that it's in their legal documents for the ACT. In South Australia, this comes from the Teachers Registration Board of South Australia. They have alternative authorisations to meet needs for specific communities. So, for example, there are policies to facilitate First Nations educators in teaching their native languages, things like that. So they don't necessarily have a permission to teach, but they sort of have, if there's a niche, for lack of better words, like a niche market, they can sort of alternate your registration so then it reflects that. Yeah, that's basically the research I got on that. And it's very similar in the Northern Territory because the Northern Territory uses the South Australian curriculum. So a lot of things that happen in South Australia happen in the Northern Territory and vice versa. In WA, there's no specific permission to teach programs, but after the pandemic, there are now more flexible processes to re-enter the classroom. So not permission to teach, it's not new teachers coming in early, it's welcoming experienced teachers back in an easier format because there is a lot of admin when you've been out of the industry for so long to get back in. So I find that really nice. And finally, in Tasmania, so this is the Teaching Registration Board, obviously of Tasmania. They provide pathways for individuals who may not meet traditional registration requirements. So for example, there's High Achieving Teachers or HAT. They recruit people from other industries to teach while they complete a relevant education degree. I have seen variations of this in Victoria with certain schools, where if there are students that want to be engineers, they will get engineers to come in and, teach them basic sort of skills that would, lead up to engineering skills. So yeah, I find that quite nice too, because it still shows that that person is the expert in the field, but they just then need to learn the professional development, I suppose, which is what we're all doing. So yeah, that is our states and territories takes on permission to teach. So obviously I can only speak from Victoria's experience. Actually, I can't really speak at all. I have not done a permission to teach. It is something that came in while I was doing my education degree. It's something that a lot of people spoke to me about saying, you should do it. I have my own opinions as to why I didn't, which you'll have to stick around to the end of the episode to find out. Dun, 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 the drama. But yeah, when we come back, we're going to stop here for a halfway mark. So when we come back, I will give my listeners' opinions, the ones who were awesome enough to share their experiences of being a permission to teach teacher. And then I'll follow that up with my sort of summary from what I've learned, what I've seen, and the opinions that I've collected. So yeah, don't go anywhere.
Laughter in the classroom halls, answering those curious calls, cheering when a student falls and gets back up anew.
Alrighty, we are back for the second time because I wasn't recording on my phone for clips on Instagram. If you don't follow on Instagram, it's just Stranger in the Staff Room. We would love to see you there because you get little bits of extra, I guess, behind the scenes with me. So let's go into our viewers, listeners' opinions on permission to teach. So I've got 3 here. This first one comes from Frankie. Thank you so much for contributing. So he says, my school I did permission to teach with in hindsight was awful for support. They said I had a mentor, but I hardly ever had time scheduled with her, and they didn't give me a blocked out free periods a week for planning or uni work, so I was constantly filling in extras, etc. So if you're going to do it, be clear with your school and be direct about what you need and what you expect. So, yeah, interesting. From little bits of chit chat here and there that did inspire this episode, I have heard very similar stories. So, number one, I'm really sorry that happened to you, Frankie. Number two, I'm sorry that that's a common narrative for people with permission to teach. This is meant to be, sort of encouraging people to get into the industry, but I feel like it's actually burning the candle at both ends for our potential new teachers. So, for those of you who might not work in schools yet, filling in extras is basically CRT. So like if there is a teacher away, they'll try and put a teacher that isn't teaching at that time in the space, and that's called an extra. So in the periods that Frankie wasn't teaching, they weren't blocked out, which meant that he could be given extras, which meant that it was basically full-time work, which is not what permission to teach is. So a full-time workload is called a 1-point workload. Whereas from memory, at least in Victoria, permission to teach is a 0.25 or a 0.15, something like that. It's basically just like one class. So the fact that there's extras involved in that sort of doesn't follow those guidelines. So yeah, that is really sucky. But thank you so much for contributing anyway. The good, the bad, and the ugly is what this podcast is for. So happy to share. Alrighty, so this next one is from Kayla, who is @_LittleMissTeach_. Feel free to follow her. I'll put the link in my show notes. She is so lovely and one of my online teacher friends from the podcast, so that is great. So she sent in 2 little notes on permission to teach. So she hasn't done one herself. She says, all of my friends and family who are teachers encouraged me not to, as they think having to complete full-time uni on top of full-time teaching is destined to burn you out before you even graduate. Side note, I think it's so silly in New South Wales that you can do CRT or part-time teaching while studying, but in Queensland we can only do full-time. Like, sorry, what? Yeah, look, because education is state to state, which is a whole nother story within itself. Little differences like that make it so annoying because you're just like, well, if I go 2 hours that way, it's different. So I understand. Thank you so much for contributing. I will get to my own opinion at the end of our sent in comments. But yeah, I had a lot of family and friends encouraging me to do permission to teach, but they weren't in the education field themselves. So their intention was correct. They wanted to, get me into the job force, immediately because they knew that I had a passion for it. But yeah, like I said with Frankie's comment, it does seem like burning the candle at both ends. So yeah, thank you so much for your contribution. So our final comment from viewers and listeners today is from Alana, and she has been so awesome to provide a voice memo. So it does go for a little bit, so I'll just let it run and play. I'll pause if I need to, do a little bit of a reaction to it. So yeah, let's have a look-see.
Hey, so my experience on permission to teach was the best. I love my permission to teach. Scary at first, but so worth it. You get such a good experience in the classroom. So you just do it in your 4th year of university, and I think it's so good to do. You get to do CRT, depending on the school, depends on what kind of pay you get. But technically should be a permission to teach pay that you get, which is so good, and you get that for the day, and you just technically work as a CRT. Everything's already planned for you. It's really good to do it, to see what year level you like the most. If you like it, put in a prep or a 6, helps you understand what level you kind of love the most. If you're in that final year of teaching, but it's really, I had no cons about it. I did it, like if you're only at uni 2 days a week, you can do it the other few days, and I just thought it was so good. Only some schools do it, some schools don't. You have to try and find out. But yeah, it's just a good experience to kind of get your taste in the field as well. If you're unsure if you're doing teaching or if you want to do something else or high school, it gives you a good taste in the field, and really good experience in the classroom. Not only gets you ready for when you finish uni, but it also helps you learn and experience different classrooms and different resources, different um, techniques that all different teachers use that you can then take as a learning um, experience when you begin your classroom. So I don't really have any bads about it. I really loved doing my permission to teach in my final year. I thought it was the best. Yeah. And it also helps you align up with the job if you find a school you really like. Sometimes it can help you align your career and your job at that school, which happened for me. I happened to get my job at the school I did my permission to teach at, which was great. I also did a placement at my school too, which also helped. So yeah, that's my yap.
Thank you so much, Alana. We love a yap. That's so good. I love how much detail you went into. That's awesome. And we do have a positive one, so that is great. Yeah, Alana, it very much seems like you love your job and you just fit in so smoothly with the school that you're at now. And it's so good that they gave you a job out of that. And they also gave you a placement out of that. So yeah, that seems very, very supportive. Yeah, that's, like you said, I'm just happy that you're happy. Like, that's incredible. Yeah, love that. Now, so here, knowing all of that, here is my opinion. Dun, dun, dun. So the difference between our three people who contributed to this episode today is that the ones that were sort of more towards the negative side for permission to teach are in high school settings. Whereas Alana, especially because she was saying, like, if you think you're in prep or grade 6, like, it gets you like used to what is expected in those year levels and where you might fit in. Hers is a primary setting. So keep in mind, I haven't done a permission to teach. I think it is great in a primary school setting because it is, like Alana said, it can be CRT, it could be with the same class and you're sort of team teaching. Whereas in high school, it is very much you're the sole teacher. Even if it's just one class, you are the sole teacher. You have the sole responsibility of planning, marking. You know, you might work with your sort of faculty team, but it is just you in that space. And it can be very, very, very difficult to keep your head above water as a fully graduated teacher, let alone when you have uni on top of that. Yeah, like, especially this term, because I'm now expected to know a lot of the admin tasks and this and that and whatever. It is very much treading water because, yeah, the floaties have come off. Whereas in permission to teach, those floaties are off before you even had the lessons with them, if that makes sense. So although I believe it was a great idea, they had great intentions, I don't think permission to teach is for everyone. If you find a school that you love and they want to put you on permission to teach, like Frankie said, be very clear in your expectations. So even if you want to, you know, after this episode, do a little bit of journaling on like what your boundaries are, and things like that, feel free to, you know, DM in the Instagram sort of Stranger in the Staff Room chat. I'm more than happy to help you out with where to start with boundaries and things, on what teachers, you know, should and shouldn't do, I guess. Yeah, just make those boundaries very, very clear and almost treat it like a business. Like, as much as education departments are education departments, they are trying to have a positive reputation. So they're going to do whatever that takes. So if they haven't got your best interest in mind, is that really the type of business you would work at if you were in any other industry? I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I really hope that there are more good stories coming out of permission to teach, because especially when I asked those viewers to send in their comments on it, it was very much a new thing. So I hope now that it's a bit more refined, a little bit more easy practice, and we can get some really positive stories like Alana's constantly coming out. But yeah, those are my 2 cents. Feel free to share yours in the comments to this episode. But apart from that, that is Stranger in the Staff Room, over and out for another Focus episode. Have a good one, everyone.
Teaching vibes were in the air, sharing knowledge everywhere, guiding young minds with such care. This is what we do.